Welcome everyone, I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Arawak, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy. Now today we are talking about Old Soul Syndrome. What is it? How can you cope with it? And what are the benefits? Let's look at a couple different myths surrounding Old Soul Syndrome. Myth number one, if someone goes around bragging all the time that they are an old soul, they're probably not. Number two, being an old soul, having been to the earth many times over, does not necessarily make you enlightened. It could actually be the polar opposite. It does not make you necessarily a good person, or it doesn't mean that you are tapping into a higher vibration instead of a lower vibration. We want to remember that people who have come here many, many times to the earth plane are quite possibly not holding themselves accountable, are not taking responsibility for the things they need to, or they may be very fearful, controlling, egotistical. So just because someone seems to be an old soul does not necessarily mean that they're doing it right. And number three, just because you've been to the earth plane many times does not make you smart, skilled, or wise. Again, it could be just the polar opposite. That aside, let's look at what I mean when I am talking to old souls and what you may be experiencing. First of all, typically it's a feeling of being out of place and out of time. You could feel that you were here on Earth in different times in the past and that those time frames fit a lot better. You feel more comfortable with what went on during that time. You feel that you understand people's mentalities during that time. You feel that that was a safer place for you. And you would feel that this is a strange time to be on Earth. It could feel very unfamiliar, like you're incredibly out of place. Now, part of being out of place is also the skin that you're in, the society that you're born into, maybe even the culture that you're born into, that mentality of current times. So you feel out of place in that way as well. We also see, number two, feeling different from others. So a lot of people with old soul syndrome feel in general that they're living on an island within themselves. They may have a lot of misunderstanding in regards to the choices that other people make. They may feel like there's something wrong with everyone. It's like, what is everybody thinking? How could people be this messed up or this toxic? There is a really genuine disconnect from the way other people think, feel, and behave. And number three, you may feel very much at home on planet Earth, like you're wise beyond your years, like you know more than you should. But at the same time, you may feel like this is not your home. You would be happier to live in heaven or in the higher dimensions or to go back into the light. You may feel like an alien here on this planet. And so it's this dichotomy where you are very acquainted with this place, but you also feel like it is not your forever home. And you may look forward to things like passing away. I also see with a lot of old souls, they run the risk of being highly depressed or even suicidal at times. And that is a yearning for home. You may also, number four, think that you have a big purpose here on Earth, that your life calling is a larger situation. It could feel almost like an obstacle. It could feel like pressure being put upon you. Old souls tend to know they came here with big reason, that they are here not just to live their lives, but to reach out to the masses, to affect change, to affect healing, and to do that on an international scale, even we would say a universal scale. Number five, being wise beyond your years. I said this a second ago, but not just in a way where you think you're super smart. You may not even think that you're super smart. You may actually think that you're odd, awkward, uncomfortable, but usually as a child, adults would have said to you, you are very mature for your age. You are wise beyond your years. You know things that you have no business knowing. And that's usually accurate and something that later on in adulthood, we start to realize is true, that we were very advanced. You could be like an adult in a little kid's body or smarter than even a lot of the adults around you. And number 6, we see a lot of struggles. What would seem like an abnormal amount of insurmountable blocks and obstacles, tasks and beatings that just keep being thrown at you. So we see that there's an imbalance between the amount of hardship you deal with and the amount of hardship the average person deals with. So we're going to break this down into 3 categories today. And I'm going to help you to better deal with some of this. So let's look at this. Tips for old souls. Category number 1. You need to stick to your kind. Now, this sounds biased or shallow, but it really isn't. I think it's a safety measure, and I think we're deserving of it. When you are an old soul and you spend your time, and I mean spend because it is a lot like wasting or being drained, all your energy and efforts with young baby souls, with people who don't know as much as you do, are not capable of as much as you are not able to even heal themselves, therefore they cannot heal others. When you spend too much time with the younger souls, you get drained. You get left holding the bag. Now, this is not to say that we shouldn't be interacting with them, but I think keeping a healthy boundary with anybody in any situation and in any circumstance in your life, you should be saying, this is how much energy I should give to this person, to this situation. And this is where I have to draw the line and start to conserve and protect myself, because it's becoming something that is a drain and it throws me out of balance. Remember that the universe is supporting reciprocity. The universe is supporting you holding yourself accountable and taking responsibility for your energy. And the universe expects you to do your part and protect yourself. Okay, so they're not your guides and your angels, and God is not going to come in here and swoop in like a superhero to protect you when you could have very well just done it yourself. You have to learn how. And a big part of that for an old soul is sticking with other old souls. When you are around other old souls, you'll find that you're able to support each other. You're able to lift each other up. You're able to embrace one another and celebrate each other's accomplishments. You're able to work together on tasks and get things done, sometimes in record time. It's like a big think tank. So there's just a different vibe to that whole encounter instead of just giving, never getting anything back and being drained. I will also stress this. It is so sadly common to see an old soul pair up with a young soul in romantic partnerships. And when someone gets addicted to caretaking, parenting over a love partner, and it becomes that sort of toxic dynamic instead of an actual teamwork effort, it is going to inevitably blow up in your face. You can't sustain something like that. So be careful in love. Another common area I see this happen is parent to child dynamics, okay, where we could see even the child sometimes being the old soul and parentification. So they end up caring for the parent whose responsibility it was to actually take mindful care of the child. We can't stay obligated to those positions. Give and know when to pull out. All right. I love the saying too. Healers must set boundaries because takers never will. All right. So that's another big part of sticking with your kind. Category number 2, fly your freak flag. I cannot stress this enough. If you're an old soul, don't even try to fit in. And especially for all the younger people watching this, I wish someone had said this to me when I was younger. for all the efforts you're going to take to try to act normal, think normal, be normal, the bottom line is this: you are always going to be 10 steps ahead of everyone else. You're always going to be onto that next thing before it ever even happens. You're very likely to have gifted and talented ways of thinking, out of the box thinking, sometimes even like genius-like thinking. You are always going to feel as though you are on an island. And if you work at it, you can connect with people. But that's an okay feeling, to feel as though you don't understand the way a lot of people think and behave. That's okay to be on that island. You will probably always battle being an introvert and an extrovert, sometimes simultaneously. You don't understand how you could want to be around people but also need so much personal space. Feel drained by other people's energy and social interactions and stores and parties and things that you think you're supposed to enjoy because everyone tells you you're supposed to enjoy that. And part of you does, but you're also an introvert. That's a common confusion. And you may always feel as though human nature is dark, it's toxic. You may never be one of those people who says, oh, I ultimately believe in the good in everyone. You may ultimately always come down to the reality that people are innately toxic unless they are working at it really, really hard. Okay. And that's okay. So try to embrace who you really are, fly that freak flag. Do not attempt to fit in, but instead put your energy into cultivating what you really believe, who you actually are. You'll get a lot further, a lot faster, and you will be able to attract members of your soul tribe, not a bunch of people you don't belong hanging out with anyways, okay? And category number 3. This one's the tough one. You need to understand that your difficult journey in life is for a greater purpose. So we typically see with old souls that they come here with a life contract to be a healer, or they are light workers. So we see things like childhood abuse or neglect, parentification. We see health issues, either for yourself or for those in your inner circle, possibly even your parents. You may have been born a minority or marginalized in your society. That comes with its own set of extra burdens. You may attract narcissists and sociopaths more than other people. And it's not due to your behaviors, it's due to your light and your energy level. It's common to see old souls suffer with extreme poverty or even generational poverty. Constant attacks from what may seem like the universe or darker, lower energies, blocks, obstacles. You get some money, it's automatically spent on a mishap that occurred. Every time you go to move up in your life, you feel that you're under all kinds of attacks to prevent you from doing it. Okay. And then we have untrustworthy friends, untrustworthy companions, untrustworthy coworkers, dysfunctional family members. We have to avoid thinking like blood is thicker than water. Be very, very careful with that. Also, a lot of jealousy from others around us. Now, this is something empaths have as well. Research shows people are jealous of old souls. They may think that you're up to something, you're a goody two-shoes, you're too good to be true, and others want to steal your light. So you are susceptible to abuse. People enjoy taking from you or preventing you from feeling good, from doing well. And I think a lot of this is just because we're mirrors. We are reflections. Old souls are automatically going to offend people who are living in their ego or like to feed dark energy. They're automatically not going to like you. And that has nothing to do with you. That has to do with them. But those that are feeding the light are interested in their own growth and what's true in the world are going to be drawn to you like a moth to the flame. You could pair up. Here are some solutions. It's simple stuff, okay? You need to find your purpose. You need to look at your astrology, your numerology chart, or get a life contract reading with me. If you don't want to do any of those, you're like, I don't have any money for that, I can't do that. Sit with your guides. Figure out what your life contract is. But you have got to understand what you came to Earth to do and stay in your lane. Old souls are constantly drained because they're feeling pulled in 50,000 different directions at once. We want to heal the world. We want to help other people. We want to accomplish these tasks we know we're here to do, but we also have to pay the bills. And we also find that we're under this constant attack cycle, and it could get really difficult to stay on the path you're meant to be on. So find your purpose, know your purpose, and stay on it. I also think a great trick for everybody is to sit for 10 to 15 minutes every morning with your cup of coffee or your cup of tea before you turn on the social media, before you talk to anyone. You need to sit and ask your guides 3 questions, okay, for that day. Number 1, what should I focus on today? What task in my life's work? What should I be focused on? Number 2, are there any red flags or pitfalls that I should watch out for and avoid today? And number 3, how can I be of service? For an old soul, your best friends in the universe, this was your best friend, your imaginary friend when you were a kid, are your guides. More so than your ancestors, more so than your deceased loved ones, more so than your lover here on earth, your family, your friends. You need to be in touch with your guides all day, every day. And to start the day off right, doing this is key. So you want to allow for your mind over the course of the day to stay open to anything that may be sending you, and pay attention to some physical symbols that they're trying to connect with you, especially the ringing in the right ear. Yes, I always say that the left ear is spirit, but this isn't spirit in the same way. This isn't mediumship. This is your psychic ability. Your guides communicate through the ringing of the right ear, the tinnitus, the pressure. You may also hear a lot of songs. You may have numbers following you, animal totems. They love to use this. Visions. You may think it's your imagination, but pay attention to what comes into your mind's eye. And whenever you feel that you're receiving a message from them, slow down and keep that interaction with them going consistently. Your guides will get you through this. They have worked with you in the past. All these past lives you have behind you. They know your life contract, and they know how to get you to the next level. Mary, that's a great point. And I think most of us will identify with that, the way that it's either vicious and people are downright nasty and like gossipy, or trying to convince other people that they should not like you, that you're up to something, or they want to steal and take what's yours. They feel threatened by you immediately, or they're like, oh my God, I connect with your energy so well. You somehow make sense to me, and I feel like you're safe and you're comfortable. There seems to be no in between. And that's not normal. That's definitely a part of old soul syndrome. When we look at the average person out there, or, young baby souls, I mean, they seem to be able to get along with pretty much everyone, and it's fairly benign when they meet someone. Not for us. Very dramatic. Well, so yeah, Bernadette saying she felt like an oddball all her life. And I know that I was going to say, is that the Bernadette I'm thinking of? One thing about Bernadette, if you guys aren't familiar with her, because she tunes in a lot, she works with historical sites and does tours. That's another thing. If that was something you were drawn to your whole life, that may have seemed odd as a child, or the things that we're interested in that we find fascinating. A lot of other people our age just don't. And part of the reason we're so drawn to history and we have an appreciation for the past is because we were there. We can really connect, and we can almost feel like we're home when we get to do any kind of activity near there. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
It's almost like a checkpoint. It's like a list. We can just check all of these off. And I think that we need to talk about it more, because especially for the younger generations, they need to know that it's normal and it's okay, and that they shouldn't waste too much of their time trying to fit in to different categories or relationships that are never going to work for them. Yeah, kind of. But our ultimate goal, of course, is to get to a graduation point. We all want to be on our last life here, right? So for those of us that believe in reincarnation, we may be hyper vigilant to make sure we're accomplishing all the tasks we came here to accomplish. Another reason it's important to understand your chart and be in touch with your guides every day. But in the way that Lori is saying it, if I'm an old soul, does it mean I'm doing something wrong? It's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong. It's that you have possibly in the past either been fearful, and so you did not accomplish what you needed to. You may have also run out of time, so you can pass away early, or pass away not even necessarily before you should have, not that, but before you got everything accomplished. And I always look at a third category when I do past life readings, and that is whether or not the person was in an unfortunate position within the society or the structure that they lived in. And so if they were disenfranchised in some way, if they had obstacles that were insurmountable, that can prevent getting a lot of things done. And so we look at time, we look at circumstance, and we look at willingness to be bold, to learn, to apply what we have learned. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they come just reincarnate over and over and over again, is they learn the lesson, but they don't walk it out. It's not enough to learn the lesson, folks. We have got to walk the walk. And when you start walking that walk, you get tested. And then you think you're done, you learn that, you've walked that walk, and it'll lay dormant for a few years and then test you again later. Things will continuously creep up, and we have to be prepared to apply what we have learned consistently to be able to officially check that off the list and not have to reincarnate and do it all over again. So stay focused. Don't worry about success or failure. Darn it, in this life, it's going to be success. That's all you really need to know, right? I love that. And we're seeing that a lot too with the younger generations. We saw, what was it, 157 people pass in, I believe it was like, was it 2018? I mean, we saw like David Bowie, we saw, the list was just phenomenal. It was like basically every major activist, singer, artist, everybody just kind of died at once. And I knew that that was the beginning of what we had always been talking about. Oh, the awakening is coming. The awakening is coming. And I was like, now we're going to see the transition. And the world's going to blow up. And it did, right? So the last couple years have been like a huge awakening going on. Empathic ability off the charts. Everything from, racial injustice to reform to environmentalism to the pandemic. We're looking at climate change and the fires and the floods, all of this. Well, they had to exit because they are power players in the universe in order to get the work done on the other side, and we will see a lot of reincarnations. We are also seeing older souls come to Earth and fewer babies being born. So it's this interesting dynamic. And when we look at our children, if you are able to say, and I think this is so great, Karina, who said, my daughter is this old soul. That's so great that you're embracing that, not like offended by her or feel like you have to control her. Because that's the thing with an old soul, is a lot like gifted and talented kids. You can't really direct them. You have to, it's your job to make sure they eat and they brush their teeth and they get their education or whatever requirements there will be to keep them safe and functioning. But ultimately, they're not going to have any interest whatsoever in anything that is not part of their life contract. And they will hone in on the things that are important to them. And they are acutely aware and skilled in accomplishing those tasks. And so we have to be willing to learn from them as well. And that's a beautiful thing. Tips for raising an old soul. I think you're doing everything right. I think so is Karina. Exactly what I just said. Don't be offended by your child who is older than what you are. Don't be offended by anyone who is older than what you are. Be humble enough to understand that as long as we're here on Earth, we're all here, including the old souls, to learn something new, or we wouldn't be here at all. So we're all technically on even playing ground. And even when that's someone that you think you're supposed to be mentoring over, like your child, we need to be willing to observe the way that they live and think and how they handle situations and learn from them. We need to try to, it's a tough balance, but give them what they need. Make sure they have the tools, but don't try to control them, and don't ever try to dictate where they're headed in regards to like their career or their education, their training, but allow that to sort of free float into what they feel intuitively they're supposed to do next and they're most drawn to, because they already know. They don't really need that much help from you. It's kind of like you have more of a companion than a child. Not the way that I do them, but they do collide a lot of aspects in regards to work that needs to be done, and relationships that are in contract will come up in both. So when I train my students in past life readings, it is a completely different curriculum. It's 4 hours of completely separate training than what they would do if they got a life contract training. And we want to be realistic that when we look at a life contract, especially if the person is a light worker, is here as a healer, has old soul syndrome, you're gonna see past life activity. And that's because of the unfinished business. It is also because the person they were previously can give them wisdom, strength, power, has already done that work, has the skill set. And so you could also have past life influence where it's uplifting you to get this work done. And when I focus on past life readings, I'm mostly focused on we usually have time to talk about 3 to 4 lives that are affecting you in this life. Different thing. All right, everybody. Well, it was a pleasure talking about this. Thoroughly enjoy it. Let me know in the comment section if you guys have other classes that you would like to hear me talk on. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and if you want to become a member, you can hit that join button. Thank you, Polly.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Spirit. Have a great week, everybody.